They're going to start Chavtes Amid Beis. It's a little above the middle of the page, 29b, Amarav. We're going to have here Machlekes Rav, Shmuel, and Rav Yochanan. Very, very famous discussion. It has to do with several things, but the main one is if min b'minai is batal. I guess the way to understand this is that normally in the Torah, we say that something is nullified in the majority. If you have one item that's not kosher and two items that are kosher, so they all become permissible if they're mixed up. Two pieces of kosher meat, one piece of non-kosher meat. However, if they would be two different flavors, then there would be an issue of nice and tam. It would give a flavor one into the other one. Then that would be there would be 1 in 60, or if there would be a chef that could taste it, that would also work. So that's called min b'she'ena minai, a type with a different type. That means a different flavor. Because it would give the flavor, you would be able to recognize it when it would be cooked together, or if it is cooked together. However, there is an opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, the Tana, Rabbi Loi. He argues with the Chachamim, and he says min b'minai is never batal. One type and its same type is never batal. He learns it from the blood of the chatas, balakach midam asar, midam apar, midam asar. He says on Yom Kippur, it says that you take from both bloods that are mixed together and you sprinkle. And everyone knows that the bull, has more blood than the goat. And nevertheless, it calls it the blood of the goat. It should be nullified. So he learns from that one type and another type is never nullified. So what comes out for us is that we, of course, hold that whenever there's a shaila in the kitchen, always ask the Rav, he says, well, was there 1 in 60? That means we hold that min b'minai is yes batal. We don't paskin like Rabbi Yehuda. But there are shittas even in Amirayim that did paskin like Rabbi Yehuda. Rav and Shmuel paskin like Rabbi Yehuda that held that min b'minai is like batal. Anything that's the same type is not batal. So now we're going to have, to make things more complex, we're going to have chametz that's mixed with other things, the teruvas. And we're going to discuss if it's mixed on Pesach, if it's mixed after Pesach, and is it the same type or is it a different type? And those are the things that we're discussing. So I'm a Rav. We start with the opinion of Rav. Chametz bizmane, that means chametz on Pesach. Bein b'minai, bein shloi b'minai. Whether it's mixed in with the same type, that would probably mean two pita breads, right? One is chametz and one was matzah. I guess you would be able to tell. One's egg matzah. That's what it is. It's two matzahs. One is chametz tikka matzah and one is pesach tikka matzah. So that would be b'minai. Shloi b'minai is it's mixed in. There's some bread got mixed into the soup or something. That's shloi b'minai. So it's aser. We don't say what the ratio is yet. That's the complication here that we'll see. We just say that it's aser. Shalei bizmanai, if it's after Pesach. B'minai, it's aser. Only if it's the same type will it be aser. Much stricter if it's the same type. And shalei b'minai is mutter. If it's a different type, then it's going to be permissible. The Gemara asks right away, b'mayaskinan, what are we dealing with? Ilema b'nais and tam, are we dealing with that the ratio is 1 in 60, or 1 in less than 60 rather. In other words, it's going to give a flavor. So then shlei bizmanai, if it's not on Pesach, if we're talking about chametz she'avar lava Pesach, it's after Pesach, and chametz that was aser is now mixed in to something else and it gives a flavor. Shlei b'minai mutter. If it's in a different type, it's going to be mutter. You have time, but it gives a flavor. If you hold chametz she'avar lava Pesach is aser, so then it's giving a flavor, it should remain aser. Ela b'mashu, we're not talking about that it's enough to give a flavor, we're talking about that extra stringency that we have of Isser Mashu that we find by Chametz, we're talking about that one little kernel got mixed into a soup. So if it's on Pesach, it's Aser. And if it mixed in, if it's Chametz Sh'avar Lava Pesach, it mixed in after Pesach, then it's going to be Mutter. Chametz Bizmanai, if it's on Pesach, Bein B'minai, Bein Shalai B'minai, then it's Aser. Doesn't matter if it's the same type, two types of matzah. One is chametz stick and one's pesach stick. It's always going to be aser, even though it's one chametz stick of matzah in 1,000 kasher pesach matzahs. It's the whole thing because it's b'mashu. I don't know if it's talking about. The way I'm saying it is it's a terubis yavish b'yavish. It's mixed in. Maybe it's really talking about a balach terubis. I'm not sure, but either way. Right. 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 But we're dealing with that. Listen, time is not going to help me because we're dealing with the Isser Mashal. Oh, if it's separate ones, then you can determine if it's separate ones. If you could send it to a laboratory or you can give it to someone to taste, then it's separated. We're talking about if it's cooked together and then the flavor goes from one to the other, that's going to be Isser Mashal. That's what we would be talking about. You made matzah brai. That's what we're talking about. You mixed it together in a batter and it gave a flavor 1 in 1,000. Okay. And how does this work? Rab l'tamei. Thank you. Rab goes according to his reasoning. The Rab is Shmuel Damri Tarvayu. Yeah, you notice it's Rab and Shmuel together. They both say, Rab and Shmuel both hold like Rabbi Yehuda. I don't want to mix you up with Rabbi Yehuda has two opinions. One opinion is that we're going to use in this Gemara that Rabbi Yehuda holds that chametz after Pesach is aser. Chametz Sh'avar Lava Pesach is aser. He argues with Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. Reb Shimon Bar Yochai holds that chametz after Pesach is mutter. That's a machlekes Rabbi Yehuda and Reb Shimon. If chametz after Pesach is aser midiraisa. There's another Rabbi Yehuda that argues with the Chachamim if min b'mina is leibatel. It's the same person, but that's a Gemara in is that in Chulin in the Darm. Yeah. So Rab and Shmuel both pass like Rabbi Yehuda that min b'minai. They both pass that min b'minai is leibatel. If it's the same flavor, it's never batel. It's sort of like the flavor strengthens itself when it finds its own flavor. Instead of being nullified, being that this is aser and the rest of it is mutter. So, and it's all the same flavor. You would think that it would become nullified. No, Rabbi Yehuda holds it strengthens it. It makes it stronger. So that's what Rav holds, that all Isurim Shabbatayra b'minai is always aser b'mashu. And Shalai b'minai, if it's not the same flavor, then it's b'nais and tam. Then it depends. If it's overpowered by a different flavor, it becomes nullified. And you can't taste it, then it's mutter. And then Rav Gazer Chametz Bizmanai Shalai b'minai at b'minai. Shalai b'minai b'minai asik Rabbi Yehuda Shalai b'minai mutter. And the reason is the Shalai b'minai Shalai b'minai at b'minai kulei like this. So it works like this. When it's on Pesach itself, so mi'ikra din min b'minai is not batel. If it's the same flavor, it's not batel. Why? Because Rab and Shmuel hold that by all Isurim, the same flavor isn't batel. However, on Pesach, he makes a gzeira, even if it's a different flavor, he makes a gzeira that it's not batel either, even b'mashu. After Pesach, then Shalai b'minai is aser, because he holds like Rabbi Yehuda. I'm sorry, min b'minai is aser, he holds like Rabbi Yehuda, that achar Pesach, chametz achar Pesach is aser, chametz Sh'avar Lava Pesach is aser. However, after Pesach, he doesn't make a gzeira from min b'minai onto min b'she'ena minai, onto a different flavor. He says, after Pesach, it becomes nullified, 1 in 60 if the flavor is nullified. If it would give a flavor, then clearly it would be aser. Correct. Right. If it would give a flavor, then you clearly can use. The question is, if it's b'mashu, if it's 1 in 1,000, and it's the same type, so then there's a difference if it's on Pesach or after Pesach. On Pesach, if it's the same type, then it's always aser. If it's in a different type, then there's a difference between on Pesach and after Pesach, according to Rav. Yeah. I'm sorry? You need to try. Let me see. You want to try? Oh, you can't see it. Okay. So we'll go further, and I'll do the comparison so you'll see where the differences are. So far, according to Rav, min b'minai is not batal. That's across the board. Min b'sheina minai, it depends if it's on Pesach or after Pesach.
Rabbi, sometimes they have an issue before Pesach, right? Sometimes.
Yeah, that's a very interesting discussion on Erev Pesach. What's going to be the din on the first 6 hours? That's a very interesting discussion. That's a discussion. That's a big discussion. Wait for Rabbi Yochanan. We'll discuss it a little bit. See, next opinion is going to be Shmuel, then Rabbi Yochanan. Okay, Shmuel's opinion. Let's go to Shmuel. Shmuel Amar. Chametz bizmanai. If it's on Pesach, b'minai aser. Shalei b'minai muter. If it's on Pesach, then if it's the same flavor, then it's aser b'mashu. Similar to what Rav said. He didn't quote Rabbi Yehuda in this, but we quoted Rabbi Yehuda that min b'minai is like batal. Shalei bizmanai, if it's after Pesach, bein b'minai bein shalei b'minai is muter. So he's a notch down from Rav in leniency. Rav made a difference after Pesach. He said min b'minai is aser and shalei b'minai is muter. Shmuel says that difference is on Pesach. After Pesach, it's all muter. There's one notch down. What's the reason? Chametz bizmanai, if it's on Pesach itself and there's a taruvas, there's a mixture here. B'minai aser. If it's its own type, 2 types of matzah, it's aser. Shmuel tamei. Shmuel follows his reasoning, which we quoted before when we were discussing Rav. The Rav and Shmuel Damri Tavaya, both Rav and Shmuel hold. Kol yisurin shebeTorah b'minai yasurin b'mashu. All prohibited items in the Torah that become mixed with other things. If it's mixed with the same type, then it's iser b'mashu, which means that the same type strengthens the iser. But if it's in a different type, b'nais and tam, then it depends if it's giving a flavor there. Otherwise, it's nullified. There's no flavor. Shalei b'minai ataminai gazar. Shmuel never makes a gzeira of shalei b'minai ataminai. That means if it's in a different type, it should be aser just because if it's in the same type, it's aser. Rav did that. Rav made a gzeira on Pesach. He said if it's mixed into a different type, it's aser, even though he holds that normally that should be batal. Because of whatever chumrah of Pesach, he says that min b'minai is not batal mi'ikar adin, and we make a gzeira on shalei b'minai. Shmuel doesn't do that. Shmuel just says min b'minai is aser mi'ikar adin, and there's no gzeira, even on Pesach. Shalei b'zmanai, what about after Pesach? Bein b'minai, bein shalei b'minai, mutar kerub Shimon. Shmuel just takes the different opinion. Now this is easy to remember because Shmuel and Shimon start with the same letter. So he holds that chametz after Pesach is chametz shavuot of Pesach is muter. That's Reb Shimon's opinion. Rav held like Rabbi Yehuda that chametz lachar shavuot of Pesach is aser. And Shmuel holds across the board chametz shavuot of Pesach is muter. Now, and on the next Amud, we're going to have a question because Shmuel held that it was aser midrabanan. But it holds that it's mutter min ha-Torah. We'll see what's the... Okay, so the difference between Rav and Shmuel is in 2 areas. One is Rav held that chametz she'avar lav Pesach is aser. Shmuel held chametz she'avar lav Pesach is mutter. So even if it's not a tarubas, there's a difference there. At least midday raisa, there's a difference. I'm giving away the answer later on. Then The other difference is on Pesach itself, Rav makes a gzeira onto Shaloi B'minai, that if it's in a different type, it's never batal. And Shmuel doesn't make that gzeira. He says if it's a different type, it's batal. But they both agree to on Pesach, if it's the same type, min b'minai, it's loy batal. Both Rav and Shmuel agree to that. Okay, Rabbi Yochanan has a totally different approach. Rabbi Yochanan amar chametz b'zmanai, chametz on Pesach. This is going to be more familiar to you, not with chametz. It would sound like basar b'chalav or something. Rabbi Yochanan's opinion. Chametz b'zmanai, chametz on Pesach, bein b'minai, bein shaloi b'minai. Whether if it's into its same type or into a different type, asur b'naisin tam, depends if it gives a flavor. Does it give a flavor or not? Shaloi b'zmanai, if it's in a different type. I'm sorry. Shaloi b'zmanai, if it's after Pesach, he doesn't care. Same type. Very easy opinion. He holds on Pesach, it's 1 in 60. After Pesach, I say 1 in 60, it really means flavor, but that's the normal flavor would be 1 to 60. After Pesach, it's always mutter. What's the reason? Chametz bizmanai, if it's on Pesach, Rabbi Yochanan follows his reasoning. He says to Rabbi Yochanan, Rish Lakish Damar Tabayu, Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish both hold Kol Yisurim Shabbat Bein B'Minam Min Shleiminam Neisin Tam. All the Isurim of the Torah, whether it's the same type or a different type, all prohibited foods are batal in 1 in 60, if it gives a flavor or not. He argues with Rav and Shmuel. No, they paired up over here. They like joined forces. Rav and Shmuel agreed to that opinion of Rabbi Yehuda and Masechta Chulin that min b'minai is loy batal. Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish both agreed to the Chachamim that min b'minai is Rav and Shmuel held min b'minai is not batal. Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish held min b'minai is yes batal. If there's no flavor again. If the ratio is not. All these sermons in the Torah, according to Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish, are batal 1 in 60, which is what we're familiar with in Masechta Chulin. Chiddush here is that it applies even on to chametz, even on Pesach, that it's batal. Yeah, in the beginning of the Shlomo Kalbach Haggadah, so there's a story over there about a family that little kernel, they had a bunch of children, a kernel of wheat fell into the stew, and they came to the Rav of Krakow or something, one of the Rabbanim. He said that the mamas don't have anything to eat. There's one shita, the shita of the shiltas, the paskins like this, Rabbi Yochanan, that even chametz is batal, and he was matter to them. That night he has a dream that the shiltas, Rabbi Choy Gain, comes to him and says that when I paskin, I said it for this family, that I had this family in mind. Okay. So, what about after Pesach, according to Rabbi Yochanan? So Rabbi Yochanan would agree with Shmuel here, that holds that chametz shavel of a Pesach, he follows the opinion of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, Reb Shimon, that says that it's mutter. Chametz shavel of a Pesach is mutter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's minai, shleibim, it doesn't matter. It's anyways mutter. Okay, so the strictest opinion was Rav. Then we have the opinion of Shmuel that's strict about min b'minai on Pesach. Then we have the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan that says there's no min b'minai, min shemin, the whole doesn't matter. It's always batal if you have 60 times. And after Pesach, he says it's mutter anyway. Okay. Amar Rava. Rava says we're on top of Daf Lamed. Rava says chametz bizmanai, chametz an Pesach, bein b'minai, bein shloi b'minai aser. It's all aser. Who holds this? The mashu, even the smallest amount. Kirav, paskins like Rav. That was the strictest opinion on Pesach. Now there's a discussion here between Rashi and in Tosfos. There's several opinions. Rashi says that based on Rava, it's going to affect all of Yeridaya. And according to Rashi, min b'mina is lebatal. Yeah, min b'mina is lebatal, according to Rashi. Shema mina the pasuk Rava hilchas the kosim shebeter min bin masher. Yeah, it's a Rashi over here. It's a Rashi in Chulin also. And therefore, he says that chaylev that falls into shuman is aser. It doesn't matter how much shuman you have there. The forbidden fat falls in. It's all aser. That's Rashi's opinion. Tosfos argues, and Tosfos says, first of all, the gear says isn't here. It says chametz bizmane bein b'min bein shlimin is aser. He doesn't say b'mashehu kirav. He doesn't say that. He says it's aser not because Rav is paskening like Rav. It's a din in chametz. It's not because Rav holds like Rabbi Yehuda that min b'mina is like batal. It's not because of that. It's a special halach of chametz. That's the way he does it. And he says really min b'mina is yes batal. Not like Rabbi Yehuda over there. Passing like the chachamim. Okay, that's a major machlekes. Yeah.
Isn't there an issue of the Sheifa material?
Oh wow. Yes, it's a huge issue. Thank you for reminding me. So they ask on Rabbi Yochanan that there's an issue over here. Rabbi Yochanan says that chametz on Pesach is batal. Now chametz really is a davar sheish l'matir, because after Pesach, especially according to Rabbi Yochanan, it becomes mutter. So davar sheish l'matir means that anything that will become permissible later. So don't rely on bittul today. Wait till tomorrow, and it will be mutter without bittul. That's a rule. Davar sheish l'matir. Anything that will become permissible anyway is never batal afilu be'elef, even in 1,000. That's a strong kasha in Rabbi Yochanan. It's so strong that they have to answer that Rabbi Yochanan doesn't hold of that. Davar sheish l'matir. That's the Mefarshim discussed this. Maybe other answers, but that's one of them. I mean, that's a very strong question. What did you ask before? Because we said we're going to discuss. Oh, on Erev Pesach. Erev Pesach comes in that. Erev Pesach has an issue of davar sheish l'matir. According to the shittas that, which is basically all the halacha, the davar sheish l'matir is like batal. So Erev Pesach would have that chumrah, even though we're saying over here chametz is b'mashu, bein b'minay, bein shloi b'minay. According to us, it's just the chumrah of chametz. It's not really a min b'minay yeshu and a gezerah, because we don't hold of that. We say that it's b'mashu because of chametz is an isakaris, and like bedili minay, you're not separated from it the whole year, so we have extra chumras about chametz, so therefore it's b'mashu, all of that. But on Erev Pesach, you don't have karis, so you don't have that chumrah, but nevertheless, on Erev Pesach, you do have an issue of davar sheish l'matir. If you hold that lachar Pesach, it becomes mutter, but maybe it becomes mutter midiraisa. Doesn't come mutter midirabbanan. Let's see. There's one more step to this. Shalei b'zmanai after Pesach, bein b'minay, bein shalei b'minay mutter k'Reb Shimon. This is what Rav is saying. Rav is saying that on Pesach, it's aser b'mashu, whether it's minay or shalei b'minay. After Pesach, it's mutter. Why? Kipaskin like Reb Shimon that holds chametz shavuot of Pesach is mutter. The Gemara asked the question that we were thinking about the whole time. Can Rava really say this? We had the Mishnah before. We were discussing chametz shavuot Pesach if it belonged to a Jew. We said that it's aser ba'ana shenemar la'yira l'cha sa'ar. We had a machlekes which opinion that was. Was that Reb Shimon's opinion or Rabbi Yehuda's opinion? One opinion said it was Rabbi Yehuda's opinion that says that chametz shavuot Pesach is aser. Another opinion, Rava said that it was Reb Shimon's opinion that says chametz shavuot Pesach is mutter. So why over here is it aser? They said, it's a knas. It's aser midiraisa, but it's a knas. Comes along Rava now and says chametz shavuot Pesach is mutter. That's not what Rava said yesterday. Yesterday, Rabbi said Chametz Shavuot Lev Pesach has a knas. He learned the Mishnah like Reb Shimon, and he says that nevertheless there's a knas that if it belonged to a Jew, then since you violated Bal Yirah Bal Yimatzeh on Pesach, so we put a knas, we make a fine. We say that it's awesome. The Gemara answers, Hani Mili, that Mishnah that we were discussing yesterday is Be'enei. That's if the chametz is not in the taruvas. Aval yidei taruvas, but once it's mixed in the taruvas, we say that it's batal. So chametz shavuot lev Pesach would be batal if it's in the taruvas. Was the Rabba Latame? Rabba follows his reasoning. The Amar Rabba says, Ki Avina Bei Rav Nachman, when we were in the yeshiva of Rav Nachman, Rabba learned by Rav Nachman. He learned by Rabba, learned by Rav Chizda, also learned by Rav Nachman. It says, Ki Avinafku Shiva Yom de Pesach, when Pesach was over, when the seventh day of Pesach was over, Amarlan, what's the pshat, Shiva Yom de Pesach? He didn't keep an eighth day. He lived in Bavel. Maybe they still had, I don't know. Maybe it's an expression. I don't know. Amarlan, he said to us, Puku Zavinu Chamira de Bnei Chela.
Wasn't there a group? Don't you remember we learned about a group that kept on holding that there was a base? I can't remember. There was something about there was a base.
There was a group that kept Taras.
No, there was something else. They kept mamash that as if the base of Mikdash was still there, and they were following. Part of that group.
Maybe if they were still being Mekadosh al Piariya, but I didn't think that they could do that in Bavel.
We discussed that it lasted for a certain while in Bavel.
Right. Anyway, Rav Nachman said to us, go buy yeast to Bnei Chela from the, I guess the Goyim or the soldiers or whatever. Go buy yeast. He said right after Pesach. What do we see from this? That obviously, if it would be the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, then Rabbi Yehuda held that even chametz that belonged to a non-Jew was asur after Pesach. We had an opinion, which was Rabbi Acha Bar Yaakov, that held that Rabbi Yehuda was mechalik. He said there's a difference between chametz that belonged to a Jew and chametz that belonged to a non-Jew. But then Rabbi Acha Bar Yaakov changed his mind. And he said it's not true. He said Rabbi Yehuda holds it's always asur. Any chametz that existed during Pesach, even if it didn't belong to you, is asur. So, but we don't paskin like that. We would go like Reb Shimon. But the fact that Reb Nachman said, go buy chametz from a non-Jew after Pesach means that he holds like Reb Shimon. And it's only if you violated Bal Yirah that we say that it's asur after Pesach. If a guy owned it, there was no violation of Bal Yirah. Amarav. Now we're going into Hilchas Hagala. These are the halachas of kashering for Pesach. Very important sugya. Yeah, all of the laws of kashering comes from basically this little page here. Yeah. Amarav. Rav says kederis bePesach yishaberu. The pots of Pesach, I guess it means that if it had chametz in it before Pesach, what do you do after Pesach? What do you do after Pesach? He says, Rav says you have to break them. You have to break the pots after Pesach. Why? They absorbed chametz, and that flavor is going to go out. Rav holds min b'mina is not batal. However, min b'she'enei minai after Pesach is yes batal. Remember, Rav didn't make a gzeira after Pesach and min b'she'enei minai. Only min b'mina is batal. So the Gemara asks, what's the problem? After Pesach, you cook in it shlei b'minai, and it's going to be batal. That means before Pesach, you made in it chametz. You made French toast. After Pesach, you're making it some chalent, or whatever. You're making it some split pea soup. So it's going to be shalei b'minai. It'll be batal. The Gemara says, no, there's a problem. Maybe you're going to make French toast again. and it's going to be min b'mina, and min b'mina is not batal. That was iser, because it's chametz shalava pesach, which is aser. Rav paskin like Rabbi Yehuda, chametz shalava pesach is aser midayraisa. This is Rav's opinion. Now Rashi over here points out we don't paskin like Rav. Rashi paskin like Rav before. Remember, Amar Rava, Rashi learned that when Rava paskin, he was paskining like Rav, that min b'mina is lebatal. Rashi now tells us that in this case we're not going to paskin like this opinion of Rav. Why? He says two reasons. In the Rashi, Amar Rav kader pesach yishabru yishbru shaberu. He says, there's two reasons why we don't paskin like Rav. First of all, Rava said that la'achar Pesach we don't paskin like Rabbi Yehuda, we paskin like Rabbi Shimon, which means that even if it's min b'mina, it's batal. So what's the reason over here why Rav said you have to break the pots and you can't use it for min b'shein mina, because you may end up using it for min b'mina? Well, that doesn't bother us, because even if you use it for min b'mina, it's batal, because we go like Rabbi Shimon that says chametz shalava pesach is only aser midirabanan because of the gzeira. But either way, in a taruvus, it's going to be batal. Second reason is we hold that nice and tam lefgam is mutter. That means once the flavor goes sour, that means it comes rancid. It goes, it's older than 24 hours. Then we say that doesn't give any non-kosher taste. It doesn't give even if it's non-kosher, it doesn't give a flavor into anything once it goes sour. So pots after 24 hours cannot make anything treif. Even though you take a treifa pot, you're not allowed to do this. But if you would cook something in a treifa pot, the food would be kosher. Nice and tam lefgam. The pot wasn't used in 24 hours. The food is kosher. And here, after Pesach, the food is kosher lechatchila. The using of the pot is only b'di'ah. You can't use the pot lechatchila. You have halacha that you have to kasher. Yeah. Shmuel says, "Lo yishabru, don't break the pots. You just leave it till after Pesach, and then you can cook in it." Was the Shmuel Tamei? Shmuel follows his reasoning. Damar Shmuel lahanu the mizavni kandi ashvu zavino akadnaichu. Shmuel tells the people that sell pots, he says, make your prices the proper price. If you don't make a proper price to your pots, I'm going to paskin like Rab Shimon. This is historically, this is unbelievable that they did this back then also. He says like this, there's these people, they sell potters. They're potters. They sell pots, the clay pots or whatever. Now, after Pesach, everyone would go buy new pots because they would break the pots, like Rab's opinion. So Shmuel tells him, make sure you lower your prices. Don't make your prices higher. If you don't lower your prices, I'm going to paskin like Reb Shimon that says that they don't need new pots. They can use their old pots. According to Shmuel actually held that. Shmuel held that after Pesach, you don't need new pots. They were buying new pots. They were following Rab. Shmuel tells the people, the pot sellers, that keep your prices low. If you don't keep my rules, I'm going to paskin for them that they don't need your pots anyway.
To be clear, pot is a pot, not anything. It's a family share.
Okay. Rav held that chametz shalava of pesach is also midiraisa. That means that the flavor that's in the pot. No, because the pots were used before Pesach. According to Rav, you would need to sell your pots. They didn't sell chametz back then. They had clay pots. There's one Mishnah that says that if you have chametz and you're on a boat, you give it to a guy or you sell it to a guy. But this whole commercial, this whole thing of selling chametz is recent. The pots that were used before Pesach, they would have to break them. Yeah, but you can't use them after Pesach. Because when you cook in those pots, the flavor is going to go out. The chametz that's absorbed in that is also, and it's going to go out and it's going to answer the food. Shmuel doesn't hold like that. The Gemara asks, well, yeah, that would be a masha, but Rav holds masha is also. Right, 100%. And even if I hold, we asked on Rav, because masha who is only, according to Rav, is only usher after Pesach if it's min b'minai. So use it after Pesach min b'sheinimini. Rav said that no, there's a gzeira, you might end up using it for min b'minai. It's very strict. Right. So the Gemara asks religiously, so why doesn't Shmuel just paskin for them? Why does he have to do this whole thing with the sellers? Shmuel doesn't hold like that anyway. Shmuel should tell them that they don't need new pots. The Shmuel Kereb Shimon's field, that's how he paskins. You don't need new pots after Pesach. The Gemara answers, Asri the Rav have, this was in the territory of Rav. He didn't want to paskin like his own opinion. Rav, it was Rav's territory. He wasn't going to paskin like his own opinion. He wasn't going to change the opinion of the people. This is how everyone paskin. So he wasn't going to mix in. But if the pots would be sold at a too high a price, the Shmuel would control that by saying that I'm going to paskin that paskin differently. Hahu tanura d'tachu beitichya. There was an oven that had that it was smeared with fat. They put some fat on it to give a flavor to but the problem is the fat is also. So when they're going to put bread in the oven, the flavor from the floor of the oven is going to go into the bread. Asra Rava Barahila. Actually, it's not forbidden fat. I'm sorry, it's not forbidden fat. It's shuman, even if it's kosher fat. Rava Bar Ahilai said you can't eat the bread. Also, Rava Bar Ahilai you can't even eat it with salt. It's fleshik bread, and you can't eat it. Dilma asil mechla b'kutcha. Maybe you're going to eat it with dairy. Kutach was a dairy dip, and sour milk with salt. So he doesn't allow you to eat this bread because the flavor is going to go into it. It's fleshik bread. Meisvei, the Gemara has a question on this. We won't get to the question until we turn the page. But first, the asking of the question is a quote of a brisa. Ein lashon as isa b'chalav. You're not allowed to make milchik bread. You're not allowed to mix milk into the dough. Why? Because bread is eaten with anything, and you're going to mix it up. If you're going to do this, you have to make a small amount of bread. If you're going to make milk bread, and also you have to make a siman in it. There's the Gemara says can tura. Either it's a small amount or a siman. The two things. We hold that you need the both. You need a small amount. It needs to be a different shape or a different color or a different something. So in a normal way, in a regular loaf of bread, you're not allowed to mix milk in. The imlash, if you did, kalapas kulasura. All the bread is asur because of hergel avera. Hergel avera would mean you'd be accustomed to sin, which would mean you'd end up eating it with meat. It was common to eat bread with meat. Similar to this, you're not allowed to smear an oven with forbidden fat. That aliyah is also not forbidden fat. It's kosher fat. And if you did smear the oven with fat, then all the bread that you made in it is aser. Until you heat up the oven. So here comes our question. But if you did heat up the oven, miyashari, then that would be mutter. The problem is that Rava Bar Ilai said that this tanner, this oven that was smeared, you weren't allowed to use it. What's the problem? He said, "Afilu b'milcha la'olam." You're not allowed to use the bread that's making this forever. That means even after it's heated up, not the bread forever, the oven forever. You can't use this oven. Here we're saying that no, if you heat it up, it's fine. Tiyufta the Rava Bar Ilai. This is a question on Rava Bar Ilai. Tiyufta, yes, it's a question. Because you can kasher the oven. You heat up the oven and the flavor goes out. Amalei Ravina Ravashi. Ravina says to Ravashi, this is the end of the Talmudic period. It says, if you're able to kasher an oven, like we just said, and we had a strong question on Rabba Bar Ilai, then why did Rav hold that you have to break the pots? Why don't you just kasher them? So we forgot the simple thing. What are we going around breaking them? Heat them up. You know the Gemara's answer, right? So the Gemara says, "Amalei hasam tana shamatecha sacha b'kder shel cheres." There's a metal oven that you can kasher. Earthenware pots you can't kasher. Can't kasher earthenware. Avram Nosson got it. Got the answer. Okay. The trophy. We had it in. We have this before. Yeah, we had it in Zvachim. Okay.
Question?
Yeah.
So this means that at this time in history, metal was used for ovens, but not for cooking utensils. Is that what this means? Must be.
I don't know if it's actually telling us what was not used. It's telling us what, in this case, that was used. That's what we were talking about. Now, Rabba Bar Ahilai, his case was a metal oven, and the Mishnah was talking about the Brisa was talking about a metal oven. You were able to kasher it. That's why we had a question on it. I hear what you're saying. No, you're saying, why did we have a question on Rabba Bar Ilai? I could answer the question. I could say, Rabba Bar Ilai was talking about an earthenware oven, and the Brisa is talking about a metal oven, right? And then you could have answered it. It must be that they didn't have earthenware ovens. That's what you're saying. I follow.
It seems that technology developed
Right.
among these few generations.
Right. We're going to see. According to this answer, you're correct. Let's see the next answer. Iba Yisema, the second answer, and if you want, say Hava Haba Shel Cheres. Both the pots and the ovens were earthenware. There's a difference with how you heat a pot and how you heat an oven. The way you heat a pot is you put the coals on the underneath, the fire's underneath, and there's liquid in the pot. But the way you heat an oven is you put the coals in the oven. So whatever's absorbed into the oven, how is it absorbed into the oven? Through the inside of the oven, through the floor or whatever, through the walls of the oven. And that's exactly where I put the coals. By the pot, the absorption goes through the inside of the pot, and the coals are on the bottom. So I don't really heat up the pot the same way that I heat up the oven. The absorption is coming in from the other side, which I never put coals in it. But let's say that's what you want to do. You'll change the way you do this. You'll put the coals on the inside. You can't put food on the outside, but the kasher, you'll put coals on the inside as well. The Gemara says, no, we don't trust you. We don't trust you to kasher like that because you're going to break the pot. That's not the normal way of heating up this pot. It's going to get too hot and it's going to break. That's why there's this whole discussion about glass. According to Svardim and other Paiskim, glass doesn't need to be different for milchik inflation. The reason for that is because it never gets hot. You would never heat glass because it would shatter if you would heat it up. Not the Pyrex, the old glass. The crystal. If you would put it in the dishwasher and under the hot water, it would burst. So it never gets hot. The other opinion was, well, you can't kasher glass. And we have a concern that it was used for hot. So it was like extreme opinions here. Whatever the case is, when it comes to earthenware, which glass and earthenware, we gave it the same status. Ashkenazim. There's a concern that you're not going to kasher it right because it's going to break. How hot can you make it? So if you make it too hot, it's going to burst. So also by the earthenware, if you make it too hot, it's going to burst. So if it's made to be heated from the inside, so then fine. But something that's not heated from the inside, then it's not going to work. Hilkach, therefore, hai buchya, this it's like a griddle. It's always heated from one side, and it's usher to use. Bimalya gumri, but if you do want to fill it up with coals on the other side as well, on the top of it, so then shaferdami, it's going to be fine. That we're not concerned of. That mamish gets hot. They would use it. They would use it on the grill, a griddle, right? It was like a flat thing that they would make bread on the top. So that would get mamish hot. They put it straight on top. It would make the pitas like that. It pops up. So that you can put coals on both sides. Amalei Ravina Ravashi, Hani Sakini the Pesach Heche of Dinulu. Ravina says to Ravashi, what do you do with knives on Pesach? So Amalei Ledidi Chadata Kavdina. He says, I get new ones for Pesach. Amalei Tenach Mar Defshalei. He says, this was a bad question. For you, I get it. You're a rich guy. You could get new knives. What about for all the people that can't just go ahead and buy new knives? I didn't mean that I get new knives. I meant that I kasha them. I make them new. How do you do that? Katayu betina. I take the handle and I put it into mud. Then parzalayu benura. The handle was wood. And then the blade, the iron, parzalayu was like barzal. The iron part, the blade, I put it in the fire. So in other words, I put a coating on the handle. I do liban on the blade. And then I take the handle and I put it into hot water. The halacha is that really knives on Pesach, all you have to do is put them into a boiling pot of water. And I think in Shulchan Aruch it says you're not supposed to kash the knives, I think. But or is this a chumrah at least, not to kash the knife? According to this, yeah, we have complications with handles, getting it the things in between and all of that. But according to this, according to Pesach, I don't know. There's a difference. There's a difference. There's a difference. Taisvis over here on the top, this Hilchas David Breitchen says that there's a problem with the knife because the knife is put into sometimes it's used directly into a hot item over a grill or something, which means that it's used over fire, which means it needs to really be kasher with fire. So Taisvis' answer is, one of the answers at least, is that by chametz, it absorbed heter. And when it absorbs heter, I don't need fire to kasher it. I can use kli rishon to kasher. Rav Huna Breder Rabbi Yeshua. Rav Huna Breder Rabbi Yeshua says, Eitz prar. This is a stirring ladle. Magila bereitchen. It's a wooden stir. The kli rishon. You just do hagal on it. You boil up a pot of water in a kli rishon. Kosavar kabbalah kach balta. He says that the same way it absorbed, that's the way it will release its flavor. They asked Meimar, what about glazed utensils? Like China things or other things, it's glazed, it has a glaze on it. Are you allowed to kasha them? If it's glazed in green, so then I know it's going to absorb. I don't know exactly the differences here, why the green absorbs more. I'm asking about the black glaze and the white glaze. I know if the glaze is cracked, that it's going to get absorbed into it and it's not going to be able to. I'm asking about the black glaze, the white glaze that's smooth. Is that considered earthenware or not? You see that it sweats. Alma bali vasiri. You see that the glaze. That means that it sweats. The moisture comes out from the other side when it's cooking. or that it blackens on the outside, that means the flavor is getting into it and going through. But that it never leaves its blemish. Daifav could either mean blemish or daifnav, or its wall, so that the flavor never gets out of an earthenware vessel. What's the difference when it comes to yayin nesach, the Darshan Meimar? When it came to wine, Mereimar said, Mani bekunya bein ochem and bein chibri bein yurkashari. You're allowed to use a treif wine vessel. It was no problem. Maybe you want to answer yayin nesach is only rabbinic, and chametz is deraisa. I think it means stam yainam, not really yayin nesach. But chametz is deraisa. Says that's not a good answer. Called the tikkun rabbanan ken deraisa tikkun. It would need to be prohibited as well, because the way whatever the rabbis instituted, they instituted it the same way that it would be biblically. Amalei, so he responded, Zet tashmisha al dechamin, zet tashmisha al deitzainin. It depends. Is over there it was used by cold, so therefore I just rinse it out. And over here it's used with hot. When it's used with hot, I can't clean it. Amar Rava bar Abba, Amar Rab Chia bar Ashi, Amar Shmuel, Kol hakelim shenishtamshu b'hem chametz b'tzainin. Vessels that were used during the year for cold, mishtamish b'matzah, can be used for matzah. It's the households, the Rebbitzins won't accept this, but that's what it says. You wash it out, it's fine. The fruit bowls and all of that, whatever was used for cold, the glasses that's just used for cold, that's not a problem. You could use for matzah. It doesn't say cold or hot. Machlekes Rishonim, if you can use it for even hot matzah. Maybe it only means cold. Chutzman beis sa'ar, except for the container that's used to contain the yeast. You have a yeast starter that you let it sit over there and it bubbles, whatever. That's very chametzik. That you can't use, even though it's cold. Hel shechimutza kasha, that's very chametz. Amar Ravashi, beis charesis beis sa'ar shechimutza kasha. When you're talking about a spice container or something that has something soury, that's also the same. Amar Rava, Hani agni de mechuza hel dir lemelish muchamira umashu buchamira kebeis sa'ar shechimutza kasha dami. He says this container that's used to knead bread, this basket that's used to knead bread, that's the same as a container that holds yeast, and you can't kasher it. Gemara says pshita, of course. Gemara says maybe because this is much wider than the container that holds the starter, so then it should be mutter v'lei bali, and it doesn't absorb. Mashmalan, we say no, that it does absorb. Okay, let's leave it over here. Can't be kasher.